I was at a massive tech flagship store in Shanghai just as the 2026 consumption season kicked off. The energy was electric, almost frantic. I watched this one guy, early 30s, practically vibrating with excitement as he tapped his phone to finalize a purchase for a full suite smart home system and a high-end new energy vehicle. He looked at me, beaming, and said, "Finally, the subsidies hit. It feels like the future is actually on sale." To him, this was a personal win, a bit of retail therapy, courtesy of the state, a moment of deep down satisfaction that he was finally getting his piece of the pie. But as I stood there, I noticed something that broke the happy consumer narrative. In the back of the showroom, two men in sharp, nondescript suits, one from the Ministry of Commerce and the other from the municipal office, weren't looking at the products at all. They were staring at a real-time data feed on a tablet, watching the flow of targeted vouchers, like surgeons monitoring a vital organ. To the guy buying the car, this was a lucky break. To the men in suits, this was a live demonstration of ministerial-municipal collaboration, a precise cold ignition of an industrial engine. It made me realize how much we fundamentally misunderstand the nature of this planning. In the West, we're used to veto politics and helicopter money, the government tossing cash out of a window during an election cycle, hoping people spend it on anything to keep the numbers up. It's a blunt, often desperate instrument. But here, that excitement I saw in the shopper was actually the calculated byproduct of the 15th five-year plan. That smart home system isn't just a collection of gadgets, it's an extension of national digital sovereignty. That car isn't just transport, it's a mobile computational terminal designed to shore up a domestic supply chain. The instantaneous shift from a shopping spree to a strategic maneuver is what's truly jarring. While other global capitals are paralyzed by legislative gridlock, Shanghai is turning a consumption season into a circuit of physical power. It's not about benevolence or helping people shop, it's about a civilizational roadmap transitioning from a strategic document into physical execution. It leaves you wondering, are we just watching a retail promotion, or are we witnessing the literal closing of a circuit in a new kind of global power?
That's a fascinating observation. And it really perfectly frames the core dichotomy we need to unpack today.
It really is two sides of the same coin, isn't it?
Absolutely. On one hand, you have that personal, immediate win for the consumer. The pure satisfaction of getting a great deal on a high-tech product.
Yeah, he was thrilled. He got his piece of the pie.
But on the other hand, that very personal moment is seamlessly aligned with, in fact, it's deliberately engineered to serve a precise strategic maneuver being executed by those officials in the back in the room.
They weren't watching the customers, they were watching the data.
Exactly. They're viewing the aggregate directed spending not as an end in itself, but as a critical lever to fulfill a national long-term industrial policy goal.
And that's our mission for this deep dive then, to really get into the 15th five-year plan, which covers this critical period from 2026 to 2030, and trace how it goes from being a high-level strategic document in Beijing to actual physical execution on the streets of Shanghai. We need to dissect those two dominant priorities: industrial modernization and strengthening consumption.
And how they're intertwined. They're not separate goals.
Not at all. We'll focus on those high-tech purchases, the cars, the smart homes, and what I think is maybe the most fascinating part, this unique mechanism of targeted digital vouchers that makes the whole thing go.
It's the engine under the hood.
It really is. We have to figure out if this level of, control and precision is just smart economics, or if it points to something much more foundational about the nature of modern state capacity and governance.
To really understand that intensity, that calculated energy you saw in the Shanghai store, we have to place it in the larger context of the 15th five-year plan.
Okay, let's start there, the big picture.
Well, this plan is fundamentally a domestically anchored strategy.
Yeah.
It was drafted at a very unique moment. You have these internal structural pressures converging.
Things like what? The slowing population growth, the housing market adjustment.
Precisely. The need to boost labor productivity. All of that is happening at the same time as significant external volatility.
Which is a polite way of saying geopolitical tensions are disrupting global supply chains.
That's a big part of it, yes. And a general slowing of the global growth engine that China used to rely on so heavily for its exports.
So the calculation in Beijing has shifted.
It's a very clear judgment. The thinking is that long-term national security and resilience just can't depend on an uncertain, fragmenting global environment.
So you turn inward.
You turn inward, you focus intensely on strengthening your own internal drivers, and you maximize your domestic technological and productive independence. This FYP is explicitly defined as the operational strategic map for national development. It's all about reinforcing internal strength against any external headwinds.
Okay, so let's unpack that strategic map. We know the core priority is something they call the real economy. The plan has 12 strategic tasks, but why is this focus on the real economy so paramount this time around?
Because the real economy, and we should define that, we're talking specifically about manufacturing, construction, agriculture, essential physical services.
The stuff you can touch.
The stuff you can touch. It's described as the indispensable ballast stone of the economy.
Yeah.
The idea is if the financial sector gets turbulent or if external trade falters,
You still have the factories. You can still build things.
you still have the sheer physical capacity to produce, to build, to maintain essential infrastructure. And that provides systemic stability. I mean, this sector employs over 400 million people.
400 million.
It's 53% of the entire national workforce. So sustaining and modernizing this massive base isn't just economic policy, it's social and political stability policy.
And within that ballast stone, the manufacturing piece is it's enormous. It's held the top global spot in scale for 15 consecutive years.
It has. And that scale, that sheer output capacity, it provides a deep, almost untouchable source of confidence. It lets them proceed with very aggressive long-term planning, knowing that the productive engine is reliable.
Even when other parts of the economy, like the property sector, are going through some really difficult adjustments.
Exactly. This relentless determination to remain the world's most capable manufacturer is, I would argue, the defining feature of the 15th FYP. It underpins everything else.
And the timeline here, 2026 to 2030, is described as being absolutely pivotal. It's about making decisive progress towards a huge milestone, basically achieving socialist modernization by 2035.
Right, which sounds like jargon, but there are concrete goals attached.
So what does that mean in measurable terms?
The primary economic objective is to raise per capita GDP to the level of a mid-level developed country. And that involves more than just, numerical growth. It requires a profound structural shift.
Away from the old model.
Away from resource-intensive, low-value production towards something that's efficiency-driven, high-value, and technologically sophisticated. The whole modernization process is anchored by building what they call a modernized industrial system.
And that's theme number 1 in the recommendations.
It's the first major theme, yes. Industrial upgrading and reinforcing the real economy.
We hear the term high-quality development all the time in this context. It can feel a bit like policy speak. If you translate that for, say, a factory manager on the ground, what does it actually mean for their day-to-day?
That's a great question. It means moving beyond just maximizing how many units you ship or hitting a GDP growth target through brute force investment.
So it's not just about speed anymore.
It's not. For that factory manager, it means prioritizing labor productivity. It means embedding innovation into every single step of the process. It means meeting higher environmental sustainability standards and ensuring better living standards for the workers through better wages and social support.
It's a fundamental shift in philosophy then.
It is, trading sheer speed for greater long-term efficiency and resilience. And advanced manufacturing, the tech upgraded part of the real economy, is explicitly designated as the backbone of this whole modern system.
So this really confirms it. Beijing is doubling down hard on its production-led model, the belief that if you build it, the demand will follow, that the best way to secure the future is to control the means of production.
Absolutely. But let's look at where the capital is actually flowing, because it's not all just shiny new factories for futuristic tech. That's a critical point.
Okay.
While everyone's eyes are on the quantum computing and the 6G, the planners are extremely pragmatic about the current reality.
Which is?
Traditional industries, we're talking textiles, heavy machinery, basic chemicals, metallurgy, they still account for over 80% of the entire manufacturing base.
80%. So you can't just ignore them.
Ignoring them would be industrial suicide.
So what's the plan for those older sectors? How do you modernize a steel mill or a textile factory?
The FYP mandates embedding digitalization, AI, and smart technologies directly into these traditional operations. It's about a deep systemic upgrade.
What does that look like in practice?
It means everything from using sensors and big data to optimize the efficiency of a blast furnace in steel production, to implementing automated quality control in a textile factory, to using smart logistics across the entire supply chain.
Some mammoth undertaking.
It is.
Yeah.
But the payoff is astronomical because the existing base is so huge. The estimates suggest that just upgrading and digitalizing this legacy capacity is expected to unlock an astonishing 10 trillion yuan.
10 trillion.
Which is roughly 1.4 trillion US dollars in new market opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's just within the 5-year window of this plan.
That is just staggering. We focus so much on creating brand new market sectors, but here's a $1.4 trillion opportunity just for making the old stuff smarter and more efficient.
Exactly. It's industrial optimization at a national scale.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the plan is also aggressively fostering those truly emerging and future industries.
The ones designed to seize the strategic heights of the global economy.
And guarantee technological self-reliance. This is where the really aggressive state investment and policy attention is being directed.
Can you walk us through some of those specific future industries? Because this seems like the clearest signal of where the long-term, non-negotiable focus lies.
Certainly. They're continuing significant investment in foundational fields like new energy and new materials. But the frontier focus is just stunningly ambitious. Aviation and aerospace is key. That's everything from space exploration and satellite networks to rockets.
And then there's the low-altitude economy. That sounds like something out of science fiction.
It does, but it's a dedicated strategic sector. It's defined by the application of drones, aerial logistics, and even passenger-carrying electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles.
Flying cars.
Flying cars, essentially, operating within cities. And it requires this unique convergence of materials, science, battery technology, and autonomous control systems.
All of which have to be domestically secured.
They must be. Beyond that, the plan targets foundational next-gen tech. Quantum technology, biomanufacturing, hydrogen energy, even experimental research into nuclear fusion.
They're really looking far ahead.
Very far. And the plan explicitly mentions emerging fields like brain-machine interfaces, embodied intelligence, which is AI that learns through a physical body, and the critical infrastructure upgrade to 6G telecommunications.
That's a comprehensive list, but hang on, I need to push back on something. If new energy vehicles, NEVs, are so crucial for energy and computing sovereignty, why are they missing from that top-tier list of new focus areas?
That is a very insightful question.
Is it a sign they're reducing the priority? Or maybe that the state thinks the market can just handle it now?
It actually speaks directly to the maturity of their strategic planning. The absence of NEVs from that new focus list isn't a demotion. It's a reflection of the sector's advanced maturity.
So it's a success story.
In many ways, yes. NEVs have already achieved the kind of critical mass and supply chain independence that other sectors, like quantum computing or 6G, are still striving for.
So the government isn't pouring its support, it's just reallocating its focused, startup energy towards building the next industrial backbone. They see the NEV foundation as largely complete.
Precisely. The strategic focus has shifted from, say, building the car components to defining the architecture of the future world. The quantum communication networks, the 6G backbone, the embodied AI that will drive the next wave of automation.
And all of that is tied together with an aggressive AI plus strategy.
Yes, to ensure that all these technological advances, from the chips to the data processing, are quickly and seamlessly integrated across all industries and into every aspect of governance. It guarantees that a scientific breakthrough doesn't just stay in a lab. It translates into a practical, real economy application.
Which brings us right back to the ground level in Shanghai, where this high-level strategy meets the retail floor.
Exactly.
The consumption season isn't just about encouraging spending in general. It deliberately targets these high-value, tangible outputs of advanced manufacturing. Why is focusing on physical goods so much more strategically valuable than, say, just boosting financial services?
Because the goal, as we touched on, is physical resilience. The planners aren't just trying to inflate GDP numbers. They're trying to direct demand toward industrial sectors that physically fortify the domestic supply chain.
I see.
Every dollar spent on a domestically made high-tech product is a dollar that contributes to domestic capacity, to skills development, and industrial refinement. Consumption, in this model, is the demand-side fuel for the industrial upgrading we just discussed.
It creates that critical feedback loop.
A feedback loop of innovation, production, and application that increases national sovereignty over key technologies.
And if there's one product that really embodies that strategic linkage, It has to be the new energy vehicle. We called it a mobile computational terminal. Let's go deeper on what that means.
Well, it means the car is so much more than just transportation. It's a dense convergence point for two profound strategic goals: energy sovereignty and computing sovereignty.
Right.
As a mobile computational terminal, a modern NEV has hundreds of sensors, significant processing power, often using those strategically critical domestic chips, and it runs complex proprietary autonomous driving software. The vehicle is constantly generating, processing, and transmitting data.
Data on everything: road conditions, battery performance,
Consumption patterns, software efficiency. So buying an NEV doesn't just help the assembly plant, it strengthens the entire domestic data ecosystem, from battery materials and advanced power management semiconductors all the way to the proprietary AI driving algorithms.
Right. And that anecdote about the couple in Shanghai, Li Mei and her husband, that illustrates this perfectly.
It does. Their decision to upgrade seems personal, but it's strategically guided. They bought a high-performance NEV, but the subsidies they got weren't generic. They were specifically aimed at vehicles with the highest-end domestic components.
Like those using the new domestic 2-nanometer chips.
Exactly. Or the next-generation solid-state batteries, which are major strategic technology goals.
So Li Mei sees a better car and a great deal, but the state sees her personal desire being channeled with precision. Her purchase directly fortifies a national industrial goal.
That's the point. The fact that her purchase strengthens the domestic 2-nanometer chip industry or helps the domestic solid-state battery maker scale up, that's the real win. Every time she drives, she's helping refine that domestic supply chain and reducing dependence on foreign tech.
And this resilience thinking extends right into the home. That explains the aggressive push for full-suite integrated smart home systems.
It's the same logic. It's an extension of national digital infrastructure into private spaces.
And a physical manifestation of what they call full industry chain capability.
Right. A smart home needs seamless integration. The sensors, the IoT protocols, the controlling chips, the cloud platforms, the appliances, they all have to work together without friction. If any part of that ecosystem is foreign controlled, it's a potential vulnerability.
So promoting domestic smart homes ensures that the core digital infrastructure managing daily life energy use, security, communication, all stays within the domestic ecosystem.
You're building a massive, controllable, and secure market ecosystem of unparalleled scale, one home at a time. It's about hardening the infrastructure for what comes next.
Like the 6G network.
Exactly. When 6G arrives, which is another FYP priority, these fully integrated smart homes and mobile computational terminals will be the physical endpoints that demonstrate the system's power and resilience.
Now, we do need to address a common misconception here, which is the idea that Chinese consumption is simply collapsing. The reality seems more complex, more structural.
It's absolutely a structural mismatch, not a failure of demand. While sales of basic retail goods might have plateaued and household consumption as a share of GDP is still behind developed economies, there's a huge shift happening under the surface.
A shift in what people want to buy.
A seismic shift. Demand for high-quality, diversified services, leisure, experience-based consumption, it's accelerating dramatically. And the current supply system is struggling to adjust quickly enough.
You see this in the huge numbers for domestic tourism, right? Especially in premium travel and high-end cultural activities.
That's a perfect example. Also, fitness, specialized education, mental health services, these are the sectors that are really taking off. In big cities like Shanghai, the maturing middle-income population is demanding services that reflect much higher living standards.
So the problem isn't a lack of demand, it's a bottleneck on the supply side for these high-end services.
Precisely. The infrastructure for producing these services, whether it's training enough high-end elderly care professionals or building world-class recreational facilities, that's the bottleneck.
So the FYP treats consumption not as a passive thing to be stimulated, but as a key part of this bigger structural transformation.
Exactly. The goal isn't just to make people spend. It's to evolve the supply side to meet this new, higher quality demand. They're pushing hard on equipment renewal to modernize factories and consumer goods replacement to get people into newer, better cars and appliances.
And building out the service infrastructure.
Critically, yes. Expanding policy support for elderly care, child care, digital health services, sports facilities. The aim is to create a market where this higher quality consumption can be both the strategic anchor and the indispensable testing ground for all the industrial upgrading we talked about.
Which brings us to the mechanism that ties it all together. The digital intelligent targeted consumption vouchers.
It's a surgical tool.
It feels like it. When Western governments do stimulus, it's often helicopter money, just universal handouts. This is radically different.
It's a deliberate move away from the generalized and often inflationary effects of universal cash. The observation was that when you just distribute cash broadly, a huge portion of it just leaks out.
Right, people save it or spend it on non-targeted goods or even on imports.
Which completely defeats the purpose if your goal is to bolster domestic industrial capacity. The digital voucher system is designed as a highly controlled surgical intervention. The goal is maximum industrial linkage.
How precise are we talking here? Can they really steer demand down to a specific part of a supply chain? That sounds like an incredible level of governance granularity.
That's exactly the term they use, and it's where the power of the system lies. They leverage enormous pools of big data transaction records, industrial capacity data, regional economic indicators to identify and target specific sectors.
So a voucher isn't just for electronics.
No. It might be restricted not just to electronics, but to high-end smart devices that are known to rely on domestically produced chips or specific new materials. This level of control allows the state to steer economic activity with just micrometer precision.
Maximizing the strategic impact of every dollar spent.
That's the idea. It's using the power of consumer demand to actively shape industrial outcomes rather than just waiting passively for market sentiment. The story of that small business owner, Zhang Wei, it demonstrates this perfectly.
Right, he makes high-precision sensors.
Yes, a critical component for those smart homes we discussed. And he was struggling with uncertain business-to-business orders. But when the targeted vouchers were launched, they were algorithmically directed, not just at the final retailer.
But at products that use his specific, strategically valuable components.
Exactly. So Zhang Wei's order book suddenly fills up because the state, through these digital vouchers, essentially guaranteed a surge of demand for the final products that depended on his niche, high-value component.
That's industrial steering. It bypasses the emotional swings of consumer sentiment. For him, that's the difference between growth and stagnation.
And for the government, it's a cold, calculated use of demand to directly support the most vulnerable or strategically critical nodes in the supply chain. It's about optimizing a limited intervention for maximum long-term systemic strength.
Okay, let's get to the economic data behind this because the efficiency numbers are just astonishing. For typical Western cash stimulus, the MPC, the marginal propensity to consume.
The increase in spending per dollar of stimulus.
Right. It's often less than one. People save some of it. But the research on these digital coupons shows something completely different.
It's really transformative for the field of public finance. The empirical research, using very rigorous methods, found that these coupons caused remarkably large increases in spending. They achieved a weighted average MPC of between 3.1 and 3.3.
So for every 1 yuan the government spent on a voucher, total spending increased by over 3 yuan.
3-to-1 bang for the buck. The leverage is almost unbelievable.
How do they achieve that? What's the fiscal magic there?
It all comes down to the ingenious design of the coupon's notch feature, the minimum spending threshold.
It's like a side quest in a video game.
That's a great analogy. You get a reward, but you have to hit a minimum objective first. For example, a coupon might offer an 18 yuan discount, but only if you spend a minimum of 54 yuan in that specific category.
Which forces you to spend more than you might have otherwise, just to unlock that discount.
Precisely. It creates this temporary but very strong incentive for the consumer to reach that threshold. And when the MPC is greater than 1, it means the consumer is actually spending more than the government provided in the voucher.
Which is why they call it consumer-financed fiscal stimulus.
Because the additional spending is, in effect, paid for by the consumer themselves. And you can see this in the data. You see this sharp bunching of transaction volumes right at those specific spending thresholds. Consumers are demonstrably changing their behavior to hit the notch.
They're being gently but firmly guided to spend just a little more in exactly the right places.
And the research validated this. They tested for the 2 main ways this could be faked: substitution and intertemporal effects.
So did people just shift money they would have spent on groceries to buy the high-tech stuff instead?
No. The data showed very limited substitution away from non-targeted categories, and they also found very little short-run intertemporal substitution.
Meaning people weren't just pulling forward spending they would have done later that month anyway?
Correct. The positive effects on spending persisted for several months after the coupons were issued.
That's a critical finding. It strongly suggests that if your policy goal is to stimulate a specific sector cost effectively, these notch-based incentives are just strictly preferable to linear subsidies or universal cash. It's a remarkable piece of economic engineering.
It really reframes how you think about economic intervention. Normally, tax notches are seen as these distortionary design flaws that economists try to smooth out. But here, applied to fiscal stimulus via a digital coupon, the temporary notch becomes a powerful policy feature.
To deploy a system like that, leveraging big data, achieving 3-to-1 leverage, directing demand down to the factory level, it requires an incredibly unified and efficient governance structure.
That coherence is the crucial enabler of the entire plan's execution. Take the joint launch ceremony you mentioned in Shanghai, co-hosted by the Ministry of Commerce and the municipal government.
That wasn't just for show.
Not at all. It was a live demonstration of strategic signal transmission efficiency. When a national policy decision is made at the ministry level, the municipal government doesn't start a protracted debate. They execute. Immediately and with surgical precision.
Which is a stark contrast to the legislative gridlock and budget stalemates you often see elsewhere. The veto politics we mentioned.
Where policy paralysis can be the norm, this system is designed for speed and unity of command. And that speed is critical because the FYP isn't viewed as a political document that expires after an election. It's seen as one leg of a multi-generational civilizational relay.
A baton passed from one 5-year period to the next.
Exactly. It ensures profound policy continuity that can span decades. Think about projects like building a national high-speed rail network or a quantum computing research center. Those require planning and funding commitments that have to survive political shifts. That's the key strength here.
And you can see that stability in the mindset of the officials on the ground. The perspective of that municipal coordinator, Mr. Chen, is very telling.
It is. He sees the transition into the 15th FYP not as a moment of political uncertainty, but as that professional baton pass in a long-distance relay.
His pride comes from the execution.
His quiet professional pride comes from knowing that the strategic signals from Beijing, say, the push for the low-altitude economy, get translated into local action, like securing land or adjusting zoning laws, with precision. He focuses on the cumulative, stable progress.
And that kind of predictability, that macro order, is highly valued by businesses. It reduces planning uncertainty.
Which is often a bigger hurdle than regulation itself. And this environment is rigorously maintained by a consistent focus on execution for the very top levels of leadership.
For instance, Kai Chi, the director of the CCP General Office, plays a vital role here.
A huge role. He has consistently driven the agenda for rigorous party self-governance, emphasizing that achieving these FYP goals is an issue of party discipline and strategic governance.
He's making sure everyone is on the same page.
His calls for prioritizing economic publicity, ensuring the country's strong economic prospects are consistently communicated, it's a clear mandate. The success of the 15th FYP is non-negotiable and requires total unified commitment.
Finally, let's touch on the strategic autonomy that's embedded in the plan. It was drafted amid intense geopolitical friction, but the document itself strategically omits any direct reference to the United States or other specific adversaries.
That omission is a crucial strategic signal in itself.
What does it signal?
It reflects a governing philosophy that China intends to advance its own long-term agenda, technological autonomy, real economy strengthening, without tying its development trajectory to fluctuating foreign expectations, sanctions, or any external political noise.
It's an acknowledgement that the external world is just too unpredictable.
Exactly. The plan is designed for this high volatility world, where internal resilience and self-reliance are the most dependable sources of national strength.
This creates what some analysts call an asymmetry in strategic consistency.
It does. While policies towards China and other capitals might swing wildly with election cycles, Beijing's long-term planning remains stable and internally anchored. By ignoring the external volatility in the text of the 15th FYP, they're signaling a deep commitment to independent capacity building, ensuring that civilizational relay can continue without interruption.
So our deep dive today really reveals that the excitement you see in that Shanghai consumption season is fundamentally an exercise in accumulating real power.
Tangible power.
The tangible physical power to manufacture, to power those machines, to compute the data they generate, and to connect those systems seamlessly. It's achieved by creating this highly efficient circuit where the personal desire of the consumer is algorithmically aligned with the strategic national goals of the 15th five-year plan. It's a cold, efficient, and deeply physical closing of the circuit.
And that robust, strategically directed start to consumption in 2026, driven by those high-leverage vouchers and the purchase of high-end domestic assets like NEVs and smart homes, is more than just economic stimulus. It's a powerful data point confirming a governing philosophy that prioritizes the relentless buildup of tangible, controllable assets, the factories, the robust supply chains, the computational infrastructure, as the absolute foundation for national and civilizational endurance. The 15th Five-Year Plan represents a foundational strategic commitment, a proactive shift that moves beyond reactive adaptation and fully commits to a technologically anchored strategy designed for long-term independence and comprehensive national development.